The Alpha's Surprise Twin Heirs, Part 2. Talia drifted on the edge of consciousness, her body weak and trembling from both the intense exertion of childbirth and the sudden awakening of her long-dormant wolf. She lay curled against Aldrich's bare chest, vaguely aware of his warmth. His scent, woodsy, rich, and faintly dangerous, settled over her like a protective blanket. It was early morning. Thin threads of sunlight peeked through the tall bedroom windows, illuminating them. A moment of tranquility had descended in the aftermath of the storm that had upended Talia's life. Two small cries suddenly pierced the silence, her babies. For a moment, Talia's mind reeled. She wanted to sit up, but every muscle in her body felt like lead. She had never known exhaustion so profound. Still, her protective instincts roared to the forefront, and she forced her eyes open, blinking against the haze. "Easy." Aldrich's voice was low, rumbling through his chest. "You're safe. They're safe." Talia turned her head with great effort. She could make out two tiny bundles, rocked gently by Charlotte in a nearby chair. Charlotte rose to carry them over. As she approached, Talia felt her vision blur with happy tears. Each baby was wrapped in soft white blankets embroidered with gold thread, no doubt from Aldrich's estate, because Talia had never owned anything so fine. Charlotte carefully placed the littlest twin in Talia's arms. The second baby was cradled by Aldrich, looking almost comically small against his broad chest. "You did amazing," Charlotte whispered, leaning over to press a kiss to Talia's forehead. "They're perfect. 1 minute older, the other second. Both healthy. Congratulations, Mama." Talia could only stare at her son through tear-blurred eyes. His miniature features were scrunched up in that universal newborn expression, a mild outrage that he'd been thrust into a bright, cold world. She touched his tiny hand, feeling a new wave of wonder, of ownership, of motherhood. When she glanced sideways, she found Aldrich gazing at his other son as if the baby were the world's greatest treasure. The hardened edges of Aldrich's face had softened, golden eyes brimming with an emotion Talia had never seen him wear so openly. Love, astonishment, and behind it all, a fierce protectiveness. And then, as if the memory were a bolt of lightning, she remembered the split second in which her wolf had emerged. She remembered shifting into a powerful she-wolf. She remembered the bond that had snapped into existence, tying her life to Aldrich's in a way that transcended all reason. They were mates. Her breath caught. The truth still felt surreal. For so many years she'd believed herself a wolf without a wolf, doomed to that humiliating label of defective. Now, in the wake of childbirth, her wolf had roared to life. She recalled the crackle of energy, the sight of her own fur, and the howling chorus of the bond forging between her and Aldrich. Yet exhaustion had dragged her under before she could fully register it. As if sensing the direction of her thoughts, Aldrich looked at her. Heat flared in his amber gaze. Mate. That one word burned behind his eyes. Talia's lips parted, but no sound came. The weight of everything threatened to engulf her. With surprising gentleness, Aldrich leaned over and brushed a kiss onto her temple. "We have much to discuss," he said softly. "But for now, rest. You've done more than enough." Talia tried to summon a retort, but the weariness anchoring her body wouldn't allow it. She only nodded, her eyes fluttering shut despite her efforts. But as she inhaled Aldrich's calming scent and felt her baby's tiny heartbeat, her tension eased. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. And despite all the unknowns swirling in her future, that feeling was too precious to resist. She let her eyes close. Darkness cradled her, pulling her down into sleep. Her final sight, the golden eyes of Aldrich Dark Moon, watching over her and their newborn sons. Over the next few days, Talia slept, awakened, tended to her newborns, and drifted off again, her body demanding time to heal from childbirth and her first shift. Aldrich was never far. She found comfort in his presence. He arranged for Charlotte to take a leave from the hospital to stay nearby. He gave Beth strict orders to look after Talia's every need. It was on the third evening, when the twins were asleep in their nursery, that Talia managed to get out of bed and leave her bedroom. She felt cooped up. She needed to move, to breathe. She found Aldrich in a dimly lit sitting room. Outside, the moon hung high, bathing the windowed walls in pale light. He stood with his back to her, posture rigid, shoulders broad and tense under his dark shirt. The faint aroma of whiskey clung to the air. For a moment she just watched him. The father of her children. The man who had saved her life more than once. Her mate. She sucked in a shaky breath, bracing herself for the conversation they'd both been avoiding. He must have sensed her presence, because he turned. His gaze flicked over her with swift, masculine concern. "You should be resting," he said. "Your body." "I'm tired of lying in bed," Talia replied gently. She took another step. "And we need to talk." He let out a slow exhale, setting aside the glass on a nearby table. "Yes," he agreed. "We do." "How are the twins?" she asked, partly to delay the heavier conversation, partly because she couldn't help but ask. Motherhood had locked its tendrils around her heart in a way she'd never thought possible. "They're strong," Aldrich said softly, something akin to pride warming his voice. "They have your eyes. At least one of them does. And they're feisty and hate to be apart from each other." Talia's heart constricted. "They're okay." Then with a start she realized this man was indeed softly gazing at her, waiting. She mustered her courage. "Aldrich," she began, "my wolf, she's finally awake. But I don't know what that means for me. For us." Her cheeks heated as she whispered the word us, but she plowed on, determined to be honest. "We're mates, I can feel it, can't you?" His throat worked. The carefully guarded mask he wore cracked just enough for her to see the swirl of emotion beneath. "Yes," he said, golden eyes never leaving hers. "I sensed something unusual about you from the start. I couldn't place it, but my wolf was drawn to you, protective of you. At first I thought it was only because you carried my children. And then, that night in the hospital, I sensed your scent. But when you awakened your wolf fully..." He broke off, lips twisting as he wrestled with his thoughts. "The mate bond snapped into place. I can't ignore it." Talia's heart hammered. "I'm not ignoring it either," she admitted quietly. "But what does it mean in practical terms? We barely know each other, Aldrich. A few weeks ago I was just the neighbor's nanny. And now you're mine," he cut in, though the words were not unkind. "But you are also your own person. I realize that," he added. "If it had only been the children, perhaps we could have arranged a co-parenting agreement. But a mate bond? It changes everything." The finality in his voice both thrilled and terrified her. She understood that a mate bond is sacred and irrevocable. But what about love? Could she really entrust her heart to a man who, just weeks ago, had been a near stranger? She swallowed. I don't know how to do this," she admitted, voice trembling with vulnerability. "I never expected to find a mate, especially not you. All I ever wanted was to raise my children in peace." Aldrich approached. Carefully, as if afraid to spook her, he sank to one knee in front of her chair. Talia's breath caught, and your eyes locked. "Our pups deserve a stable home," he said, voice hushed. "You deserve to feel safe. I will do everything in my power to give you both. If you'll let me." Her throat burned with unshed tears. Could it really be so simple? "But your pack, your status," she whispered. "They might not want a defect." She stopped herself, the old, hurtful words slipping out unbidden. She lowered her gaze. "They might not want a wolf like me." Warm fingers tilted her chin up. Aldrich's expression turned to steel. "Never call yourself defective again, Talia. Do you understand? You've endured more hardships than anyone should face in a lifetime. You are strong. My pack will see that." The raw fierceness in his tone made her heart flutter. She let out a shaky exhale. "All right," she said. "But you have to promise me you won't shut me out. If we're mates, if we're in this together, I need you to be honest with me about everything. Your pack, your life, the threats we face. He nodded solemnly. I promise. She offered him a faint smile, trying to hide how her stomach was doing flips. Then, we can figure the rest out as we go, one step at a time. His lips curved into a small, genuine smile. Then he rose and gently scooped her off the chair. Aldrich carried her back to her bedroom, where the two little bassinets sat side by side. Their babies were already stirring as if sensing their parents' presence. Aldrich lowered Talia carefully to the bed. The closeness of him, the warmth of his chest, and the strength of his arms made her pulse race. He hovered for an instant, eyes searching hers, before he eased away. Rest, he ordered, but his voice was not unkind. I'll bring them to you when they need feeding. She glanced up, fighting the urge to pull him closer. Her cheeks heated again, and she murmured, Thank you. He gave a single nod. The mate bond hummed between them like a taut wire. Whatever else lay ahead, Talia realized she no longer stood alone in the darkness. The next morning found Talia feeling a shade stronger, enough to walk short distances in the house without collapsing from exhaustion. Charlotte had set up a comfortable routine, ensuring Talia had water, nutritious meals, and time to sleep while the babies dozed. Aldrich, however, was absent much of the day. Talia tried not to let disappointment bloom in her chest, reminding herself he had a massive empire to run. She busied herself with the twins. Both had inky tufts of hair that matched Aldrich's midnight locks, while one seemed to have inherited Talia's green eyes and the other's eyes were a lighter hazel. They were perfect. Yet trouble, it seemed, was never far from Talia's mind. She kept replaying that night of her kidnapping attempt. Who were those men who had broken into Charlotte's apartment? Her stomach knotted each time she recalled it. The memory haunted her. If there were people out there determined to hurt her children, she needed to be prepared. Late that afternoon, while the twins napped, Talia ventured onto one of the estate's balconies. She stood at the stone railing, letting the crisp breeze fan across her cheeks. Far below stretched manicured lawns and tall iron gates. Several guards in suits, accompanied by big wolfhounds, patrolled the perimeter. A shiver crept up her spine. All of this was for her safety, but it was also a sign of how dangerous her life had become. Should you be up? Charlotte's gentle voice came from behind. Talia turned, smiling wanly as her friend joined her. I'm all right. I needed some fresh air. Charlotte nodded, leaning against the railing. I know it's overwhelming, all of it. The babies, the awakening of your wolf, this place, your mate. Her lips quirked. Honestly, Talia, you've soared right past the average daydream, haven't you? Talia let out a nervous laugh. It's surreal. Some nights I half expect I'll wake up in that old orphanage with nothing but bruises and empty dreams. Charlotte brushed Talia's arm sympathetically. You won't, she said, voice firm. You've come too far. You're not that child anymore. And Aldrich, he might be intense, but it's obvious how he looks at you. Heat rose to Talia's cheeks. She lowered her gaze. He's kind of sweet, in his own terrifying way, she conceded. But there's so much I still don't know. With a rueful sigh, Charlotte turned her gaze toward the horizon. Listen, I won't pry, but I need you to be honest with him about everything. He's an alpha. He'll bulldoze over you if you don't stake your claim. Talia nodded thoughtfully. Thank you, for everything. For pushing me to do the artificial insemination. For letting me stay with you. None of this would have happened if... Don't, you owe me nothing, Charlotte cut in, smiling gently. Though, if you ever let me babysit my nephews, I won't complain. Talia's own grin spread across her face. You're going to spoil them rotten. Obviously, Charlotte replied with a laugh. The two stood in companionable silence, letting the wind blow away some of their worries, if only for a moment. That night, after dinner, Aldrich summoned Talia to a private courtyard deeper within the estate. She wrapped herself in a warm shawl, uncertain of what to expect. and followed one of his guards through winding halls until they stepped out into an enclosed garden, bathed in silver moonlight. Aldrich stood near a quiet fountain, his silhouette imposing. Twinkling fairy lights wove around the tall hedges, and fragrant flowers perfumed the air. She walked closer, halting a few steps away. He looked every inch the Alpha King, eyes gleaming, posture taut with an authority that could not be denied. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, pitching her voice softly so as not to disturb the hush of the night. He turned, gaze sliding over her in a way that made her feel both exposed and cherished. "There's something we need to discuss," he said, voice low. "About those men who tried to abduct you." Her stomach twisted. "You found out who they are?" He dipped his head in a curt nod. "They were mercenaries hired by a rogue faction from a neighboring pack. Initially, I suspected sabotage within my own territory, but this threat is external. The mercenaries work for a wolf named Ezekiel Stormfang." Aldrich exhaled, tension radiating from him. "He's an alpha with a complicated history. I have clashed with him in the past. He despises me." Talia's heart thumped heavily. "Why me specifically?" "Because you're my mate, but you weren't known to my pack, an outsider, presumably human. Stormfang thinks that if he undermines my new family, it weakens me." "He's wrong," Aldrich added. "But it doesn't mean he won't try again." Fear prickled along Talia's skin. She thought of the helplessness she felt in that van, the dark shapes looming over her. Her chest tightened. "And what about your pack? Do they know who I am?" Aldrich's eyes flashed. "The official announcement has yet to be made. Only my beta Luca and a few trusted wolves know of our bond. But soon, I'll introduce you as my mate and Luna. That will grant you the pack's protection. But it also puts you in the spotlight." Talia swallowed. Luna. The title felt monumental, impossible. I never asked to be Luna," she whispered. "I was content just wanting to raise my kids in peace." Aldrich's gaze gentled. "I know, but it's more than a title. It's a bond with the pack. I can't force it on you." He hesitated. "But I will need you by my side if I'm going to effectively protect you against Stormfang or any other rival. It won't be easy. My pack can be intense." A faint, humorless laugh escaped Talia. "Intense is the recurring theme of my life lately." He stepped closer. She caught the faint scent of pine and musk on his skin, felt the subtle thrumming of power that always hovered around him. "You've survived worse," he told her softly. "We do this together. Or not at all." Her heart gave a dizzying flip. He had never said anything so close to "I want you" or "I care about you," but that admission was close enough that her throat tightened. Slowly, uncertainly, she lifted her hand and set it against his chest. She felt his heartbeat pounding, steady and strong. "All right," she managed, voice trembling. "Show me how to do this. How to be with you." His arms rose, enveloping her gently. The mate bond hummed, sending tingles across her skin. Talia closed her eyes, breathing him in. She felt his lips ghost against her hair. They stayed like that for a moment, two wounded souls clinging to each other beneath the moonlight. Early the next morning, Talia woke feeling a bit steadier. She fed the twins, listening to their little squeaks and coos. After they drifted back to sleep, she took a walk around the estate's sprawling gardens. With each step, she tested her healing body. Though she felt twinges of soreness, she was no longer so fragile she had to cling to the furniture. A hint of pride fluttered in her chest. Snap, a twig broke behind her. Talia whirled, heart pounding. Memories of that abduction attempt shot adrenaline through her. But it was only a guard. He dipped his head in a polite nod. "Ma'am," he said. "Apologies. The Alpha ordered we keep an eye on you in case you needed anything." Talia's pulse gradually slowed. "I'm fine," she answered, forcing a polite smile. "Please don't sneak up on me next time. It's unsettling." Yes, ma'am. He inclined his head again. With a sigh, Talia resumed her walk. She wasn't used to having bodyguards. She'd spent her life taking care of herself and Charlotte. Now an entire army of werewolves was assigned to watch her every move, for her own safety. She turned a corner where the hedge rose taller, forming a secluded nook around a small koi pond. Movement ahead caught her eye. There was Beth. Beth was crouched near the pond, scattering fish food. She glanced back and smiled warmly when she noticed Talia. "Good morning, dear," Beth greeted. "You're looking more vibrant today." Talia returned the smile, venturing closer. "I feel a bit stronger," she admitted. "It helps that the twins slept more decent last night." Beth chuckled. "They're wonderful boys. I've never seen the alpha so smitten. He used to be so distant, you know. Even as a boy, carrying the weight of his birthright." Talia hesitated. "He doesn't talk much about his childhood. Did you raise him?" A fond, almost maternal look touched Beth's features. "I was a caretaker in his household for many years. He lost his mother young and had to grow up fast. His father was a strict man who believed showing affection was a weakness. When Aldrich took over, he changed things, but old habits die hard. He still struggles to express what he truly feels." Talia processed that, her heart twinging in sympathy for the lonely boy Aldrich must have been. No wonder he was so possessive and protective. Now he'd learned early on that the world was harsh, that precious things could be taken away. Beth wiped her hands and rose to her feet. "I'm glad he found you," she said. "You're good for him." Warmth crept into Talia's cheeks. "I hope so. I'm still figuring it all out, but I promise I won't hurt him. Or our children." Beth patted Talia's shoulder gently, then bobbed her head in farewell before heading back toward the house. Talia lingered by the koi pond, absorbing Beth's words. We're mated now. The gravity of that bond weighed heavy on her mind. A few days later, Talia's newfound peace was interrupted by a message from Aldrich. "The pack elders are demanding to meet you, immediately." Talia sat in the library, the note in her hands, her stomach twisting into knots. She had half expected something like this, but the swiftness rattled her. Aldrich found her there not long afterward. "We can't delay," he said without preamble. He looked distinctly grim. "This is an official hearing. The elders want to ensure that my mate is worthy, I suppose, ensuring you can handle the role of Luna. Or if we should, make alternate arrangements." Talia's breath came more quickly. "What kind of arrangements?" "Nothing we're going to let happen," Aldrich growled. "But they're suspicious of you, Talia. You appeared from nowhere, apparently a human, yet gave birth to alpha heirs. They fear infiltration or sabotage from a rival pack. We have to show them you belong." She wanted to quake with dread, but instead, an old stubbornness flared. She had spent her childhood being labeled a worthless wolf, a defective. She had survived. This was no different. "Let's go then," she said, squaring her shoulders. "I'll show them who I am." The pack's ancestral meeting hall was situated on the far side of Aldrich's massive territory, nestled between thick forest and a winding river. Talia rode in a sleek SUV with tinted windows, Aldrich by her side, Charlotte and a handful of guards trailing behind them in separate vehicles. The twins remained in the estate's care under heavy security. Talia peered out the window at the moonlit forest, nerves aflutter in her belly. Aldrich reached over, covering her hand with his. "I'll be right next to you," he promised. "They can't touch you, and if they try, I won't hold back." Her heart lurched. She nodded, clinging to his touch like a lifeline. When they arrived at the towering rustic lodge, Talia's breath stilled. Dozens of wolves waited outside. Some were in their human forms, wearing a variety of clothing from casual to ceremonial. Others lingered near the edges of the clearing as wolves, luminous eyes tracking her every move. A hush rippled through the crowd as Aldrich stepped out. Talia followed, lifting her chin. She tried not to falter under the sea of gazes. She caught murmurs. "That's the Alpha King." "Is that his mate?" "She's the human, but her scent." Aldrich didn't slow. He swept forward, guiding Talia to a set of heavy double doors. The parted crowd gave them a wide berth, bowing their heads in deference to their alpha. Talia's pulse thrummed with adrenaline. Inside, the lodge's main chamber was massive, lined with wooden columns carved with wolf motifs. At the far end sat a long, semicircular table where 5 elders rose to greet Aldrich. Their combined aura prickled across Talia's skin. Powerful, seasoned wolves with silvering hair and piercing eyes. But none of them had an aura quite like Aldrich's. A tall, silver-haired woman stepped forward, inclining her head in respect. "Alpha Dark Moon," she intoned. "We have come as requested, to learn the truth about your mate." Talia stiffened. There was a faint note of skepticism in the woman's voice. Aldrich's shoulders tensed, but he remained outwardly calm. "This is Talia," he announced. "She is my mate. She has borne my twin sons. I have brought her to dispel any confusion." His gaze sharpened. "But keep in mind, any hostility toward her is hostility toward me." The elders exchanged glances. Finally, the same woman pinned Talia with a scrutinizing stare. "Tell us, Talia, how did you come to be the mother of our Alpha's heirs? We have heard contradictory rumors, that you are human, that you are a dormant wolf, that your wolf was awakened only recently." Talia swallowed hard but refused to look away. "I was orphaned young and never had a formal pack. My wolf never surfaced, and I was ridiculed, as if I had none at all. It was only through the powerful events of my pregnancy and giving birth that my wolf awakened. I can't explain the exact mechanism, but it happened. Ask Aldrich. He saw it himself." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. One of the male elders snorted. "Convenient timing," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Talia's temper flared. She squared her stance, recalling all the times in her life she'd been dismissed as worthless. "Convenient? I didn't ask for any of this," she said, her tone cracking like a whip. "But it doesn't change the truth. I carry the Alpha's scent, I birthed his children, and if you need further proof." Before she could finish, a wave of dizziness struck her. The mental exertion, combined with her not quite healed body, weighed on her. She stumbled, and Aldrich shot out an arm to steady her. Embarrassment flooded Talia's cheeks. She didn't want these proud wolves to see her weakness. Aldrich pulled her closer, growling low. "She is still recovering from childbirth. If you press her, it'll be over my dead body." Quiet fell. Then another elder cleared his throat diplomatically. "We don't doubt your claim, Alpha, but the pack must be assured. Would the mother of the heirs consent to show us her wolf? Or can she not shift at will?" Talia's insides squirmed. She'd shifted once during birth. She hadn't consciously let it happen. Could she do it again? Fear coiled through her. She closed her eyes, trying to summon that fiery presence she'd felt. "Wolf," she called inwardly, "I need you." A faint stir flickered beneath her consciousness. She sensed the wolf, but it lay weak, exhausted like Talia herself. The new bond was tenuous, untested. No matter how she tried, it refused. She felt its fear and fatigue echo her own. Panting softly, Talia shook her head, frustration stinging her eyes. I can't just shift on command." She turned to Aldrich, cheeks flushing. "I'm sorry." He gently set a hand on her lower back. "It's all right." But the elders looked unconvinced, exchanging uneasy glances. Tension thickened in the chamber. Aldrich's protective fury pulsed through the air, a near-tangible force that made the hair on Talia's arms stand on end. At last, the silver-haired elder woman sighed. "Given the circumstances, we can't demand more proof than what you've presented. And these children, if they are truly of your blood, will reveal themselves in time. Wolf pups do not remain hidden." One of the male elders nodded reluctantly. "Then the council will remain cautiously optimistic. But be warned, Alpha. If we find any sign of deception, we will take action. Aldrich's expression was glacial. This meeting is over. He turned on his heel, guiding Talia out with a firm hand. The tension was almost suffocating, but Talia clung to his arm, refusing to let fear conquer her. Outside, the crowd parted again, letting them pass without interference. They drove away under the light of the moon, away from the stifling scrutiny of the elders. Talia's breath gradually evened out, though her mind still whirled with a dozen anxious thoughts. She could sense Aldrich's anger radiating in waves. Finally, she placed a tentative hand on his thigh as he drove. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I couldn't show them what they wanted. My wolf, she's not strong right now." His jaw flexed. "You have nothing to be sorry about. The elders can be stubborn old fools, but they won't move against me without serious cause. You are my mate, and that is enough." She managed a small smile, touched by his staunch defense. "For now," she murmured. "But they'll keep watching, won't they?" "Let them watch," he said, voice dropping to a growl. "I've ruled this pack for a decade without bowing to their demands. They advise me, they don't command me. And if they try to hurt you or our pups, they'll face consequences." The fierce promise in his words warmed her chest. Impulsively, she leaned closer, brushing a gentle kiss to his shoulder, through his shirt. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm just still scared sometimes." His free hand left the wheel, reaching for hers. "I know," he murmured. "I'll keep you safe. Always." They lapsed into silence then, their hands entwined over the center console. The mate bond thrummed, weaving a fragile, comforting tether between them. Over the following weeks, Talia dedicated herself to three things: caring for the twins, forging an honest relationship with Aldrich, and learning to coax out her wolf. She found that, if she meditated closing her eyes, breathing slowly, sinking into that deep well of inner stillness. One afternoon, Charlotte caught her sitting cross-legged on the bedroom floor while the twins napped, her eyes closed in concentration. "Are you practicing shifting?" Charlotte asked, half amused, half awed. Talia cracked open an eye. "Trying," she admitted. "All I get are these flickers of fur. Like I can feel my arms begin to tingle, but nothing else. It's frustrating." Charlotte frowned sympathetically. The typical age for a first shift is in adolescence, when the body is more flexible. You're an adult, so you miss that natural learning curve. But you also have alpha genes flowing in you after carrying Aldrich's pups. Give it time. Talia nodded, letting out a breath. She had to be patient. If her wolf had emerged, she will again. She pushed to her feet, shaking off the faint dizziness of exertion. "Right now, I'm just focusing on being strong for my boys. They're already a handful. Did you see the older one trying to crawl? It's too soon, but he tries aggressively." Charlotte chuckled. Definitely got that from Aldrich. The mere mention of Aldrich sent a swirl of emotion through Talia. He'd been busy dealing with pack issues, talks of infiltration, heightened security, and repeated run-ins with rumors that Ezekiel Stormfang was planning something bigger. He rarely said it outright to Talia, but she saw the strain in his eyes each night. Yet in those nights, Aldrich returned to her side. They'd share hushed conversations. And slowly, Talia felt a sense of partnership forming between them. He wasn't the best with words, but he showed his devotion in small ways. One night, lying together, Talia mustered the courage to rest her head on his chest. The steady drum of his heartbeat made warmth blossom inside her. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. He shifted slightly, wrapping an arm around her waist. "For what?" "For letting me in," she said quietly. "I know it's not easy for you, but I feel less alone. I haven't felt that way in a long time." She felt him exhale, his breath stirring her hair. "You'll never be alone again," he murmured. "Not as long as I breathe." The quiet sincerity in his tone brought tears to her eyes. She relaxed, letting herself fall asleep, wrapped in Aldrich's embrace. If being mates meant sharing burdens as well as joys, Talia finally believed they could endure. But peace never lasted long. Whispers of Ezekiel Stormfang's plans continued to circulate. Aldrich grew more restless. He came home late, tension etched in the line of his jaw. He spoke to Talia only in vague terms. "He's rallying support." Or, "Our patrols caught Stormfang's wolves near the border." Talia's insides would clench with anxiety. One evening, the dread she felt was confirmed. Aldrich walked in, shoulders tight. "He's challenging me," he said curtly. "In a month's time, at the gathering of packs, Stormfang wants a formal contest of strength." Talia's heart hammered. "A challenge like a fight? To death?" "It could be," Aldrich admitted. "Traditionally, if an alpha issues a direct challenge for territory or rank, it can escalate. Stormfang wants to embarrass me. He'll likely use underhanded tactics." She swallowed, fear hollowing out her stomach. "Will you kill him?" Aldrich's jaw clenched and he didn't answer directly. "He's threatened our family. I won't let that stand. The question is how far this will go." Talia took a deep breath. She'd never been a fighter, but she wasn't naive enough to think life was all sunshine. "Is there any other way? Diplomacy?" He met her eyes, expression bleak. "I doubt it. Stormfang thrives on violence, but don't worry," he added, voice dropping to a soothing rumble. "I'll keep you and the twins safe, no matter what." As the month raced by, tension soared. Pack members aligned behind Aldrich, preparing for the gathering. The estate buzzed with activity as wolves arrived from across his territory to pledge their loyalty and coordinate their strategy. Amid the chaos, Talia watched Aldrich transform from just an overprotective father and mate into the true Alpha King. He spent hours training in the estate's private gym, determined. She understood at last the weight he carried on his shoulders, not just for their new family, but for every wolf who looked to him for leadership. He rarely let Talia witness these sparring sessions, likely worried the sight of violence would unsettle her. But one afternoon, she slipped inside the training hall, unnoticed. She found Aldrich shirtless, sweat glistening across his muscled chest, as he faced off against two wolves. They attacked, but Aldrich moved like a storm incarnate, dodging with preternatural grace, landing heavy blows that sent them staggering. Talia's heartbeat thudded. He's unstoppable. Yet seeing him in such savage glory ignited both pride and fear in her heart. When the session ended, Aldrich dismissed his opponents. He turned, noticing her. Silence stretched. She blushed, unsure if he'd be irritated she'd witnessed it. Instead, he crossed the space with slow, purposeful strides. "You shouldn't be here," he said, though not harshly. He reached for a towel to wipe the sweat from his brow. She tried not to stare at the ridges of muscle on his chest. "I wanted to see how you prepare," she said softly. "I don't want to be shut out of anything. I'm your mate." His intense golden gaze flickered with something unreadable. Then he nodded. "Fair enough." He moved closer. "I'm ready for this," he said grimly. "Whatever Stormfang brings, I can't afford to lose." Talia swallowed. "I don't want you to lose. I'm just terrified. Please come back to me and our kids." His expression softened. He bent down to brush a kiss across her lips, sweat salty and electric. "I promise." She kissed him back, letting him anchor her in that moment, silently willing him to return alive and victorious. The day of the gathering arrived. Talia traveled with Aldrich and a retinue of loyal wolves to a wide clearing ringed by towering trees in the depth of the forest. Other packs had come, setting up tents and pavilions. Talia had never seen so many wolves in one place, the air thick with the scent of ego and power. A massive bonfire blazed in the center that evening, and as the moon rose high, the challenge started. Stormfang appeared at the edge of the clearing. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a cruel twist to his mouth. His pack flanked him, hard-eyed wolves brimming with hostility. A hush fell as Stormfang stepped forward. His gaze slid to Talia, then to Aldrich, and he sneered. "So it's true," he mocked, projecting his voice. "The mighty Alpha King has shackled himself to a she-wolf who can't shift. A defective." Talia's fist clenched at her sides, anger coiling in her gut. But she kept her silence. This wasn't her battle to fight. Aldrich would handle it. Aldrich's expression was carved from stone. "We settle this now," he said, voice echoing across the clearing. "What are your terms?" Stormfang's lips pulled back into a snarl. "We fight alpha to alpha. No second, no weapons. If I win, I claim your territory and your mate." Aldrich's wolf lunged to the surface, golden eyes blazing with fury. He let out a low, lethal growl that made the crowd shudder. "If you so much as glance at Talia, I'll tear you to pieces," he snarled. "But fine." Agreed. Talia's heart hammered in her chest. He can't lose, she told herself, clinging to that thought. Aldrich was the strongest alpha she'd ever encountered. Still, dread prickled her skin. Stormfang's confidence was unnerving. Wolves encircled them, forming a makeshift arena with the bonfire lighting the space. Aldrich and Stormfang shed their shirts, stepping onto the packed earth. The night air was thick with tension. Without warning, Stormfang attacked, shifting into a massive gray wolf mid-lunge, jaws snapping. Aldrich shifted an instant later, his form a powerful black wolf with streaks of silver along his flanks, eyes glowing molten gold. Claws ripped the ground. Teeth slashed through the air. They clashed in a whirl of fur and snarls. Talia's breath caught. She wanted to look away but couldn't. The two alpha wolves tore at each other. Blood sprayed around them on the ground. A savage bite tore into Aldrich's shoulder and Talia cried out despite herself. But Aldrich roared, twisting free, landing a punishing strike against Stormfang's side. Stormfang howled, stumbling. Fur flew and the crowd rumbled with shock or support. Minutes stretched like hours. Aldrich's superior skill began to show. He was faster, more strategic. Talia's hope soared. But Stormfang fought with a desperation that bordered on madness, launching near reckless charges. In a burst of cunning, the rogue alpha feigned retreat, only to spring at Aldrich's unguarded flank. Aldrich was caught off guard, taking a brutal bite to the ribs. He fell, letting out a pained snarl. Talia felt a scream building in her throat. The circle of wolves trembled, uncertain whether to intervene. By the old laws, they weren't allowed. Stormfang landed on Aldrich, jaws gaping for the kill. Talia's body moved before her mind could catch up. She darted forward, ignoring the shouted warnings, the frantic calls to stay back. All she knew was that her mate was in danger, and she refused to watch him die. As Stormfang's teeth closed in, Talia let out a strangled cry. Her wolf surged inside her, responding to the raw panic that coursed through her veins. This time, she didn't fight the shift. She embraced it. Agony and power flooded her system in equal measure. Her vision blurred, bones cracked. In one explosion of energy, Talia shifted into her wolf form, a sleek female with fur of dark mahogany shot through with golden streaks. A primal howl ripped from her throat. Stormfang, startled by the sudden presence of another wolf, hesitated for an instant. It was enough. Aldrich twisted, bucking Stormfang off him. The rogue alpha skidded, disoriented. Talia lunged, sinking her teeth into Stormfang's flank. Her hold wasn't as strong as Aldrich's, but the momentum flung Stormfang sideways. He howled in pain, thrashing. Aldrich seized the opening, pouncing on Stormfang, jaws closing around the rogue's throat. A strangled gurgle, blood sprayed. Stormfang's body went slack. Breathing ragged, Aldrich released his limp foe, muzzle dripping red. The circle of wolves erupted in howls. Talia, panting in her new wolf form, stood trembling. She tasted blood in her mouth, both horrifying and strangely exhilarating. Aldrich turned his massive black head toward her, golden eyes gleaming with relief and something deeper. Pride. Slowly, he limped to her. She let out a low whine, stepping close. pressing her muzzle to his. For a moment they stood there, battered but alive. Their bond pulsed with overwhelming intensity. They had won. Back at the estate, Talia's second shift left her drained. Even so, she insisted on tending to Aldrich's wounds. They retreated to a private suite, away from the pack's celebrations. Aldrich had refused all but the minimal medical intervention for himself until he was sure Talia wasn't injured. "I'm fine," she assured him gently, pressing a warm cloth to a claw mark on his shoulder. He winced but didn't pull away. "You're the one who nearly got killed." "I'm still here," he murmured, his eyes flicked to her face, full of wonder. "You shifted. You saved me." She blushed, shrugging awkwardly. "I couldn't watch you die." "My wolf responded. I didn't even think." He caught her wrist, stilling her hand. "You risked everything for me," he said, voice gruff. "Thank you." Their gazes locked, the mate bond buzzing between them. Slowly, Aldrich leaned closer. Talia felt her heart pound as his breath caressed her lips. With soft intent, he kissed her, one hand sliding around to cradle the back of her head. She kissed him back, relief and lingering adrenaline pouring into every motion. The taste of him was warm, solid, alive. When they finally pulled apart, Talia exhaled shakily. "You needed me," she whispered. "And I'll always be here if you need me." His eyes flashed with a familiar possessive light. "And I'm here for you," he returned fiercely. "My Luna." Talia blinked, the title sinking in. She thought back to the orphanage, to the lonely nights fleeing with Charlotte, to the heartbreak of Daniel's betrayals, to discovering she was pregnant, to the countless times she felt less defective. Now, this formidable alpha, the father of her children, was calling her Luna, a sign of respect, of shared leadership. She smiled through tears. "I will do my best." He pressed his forehead to hers. "That's more than enough."